Hey YouTube, what to do when your dog barks, dislikes, hates, lunges, whatever you want to call it, at other dogs? What do you do?
And the thing is, this is really common, and there'll be a lot of people telling you, putting labels on your dog at this point if they're aggressive, they're difficult, they're reactive.
Maybe they're stubborn, or maybe they're just being dominant. You know what? Let's get rid of these labels. Here at Absolute Dogs, we are not about that at all. And what we like to do is we like to work on actually the assumption that all dogs really are good dogs.
Yeah.
We actually just need to work on concept, games-based learning to
skills.
Bring them to the place that we need them to be able to deal with the environments and the situations that they might find themselves in. I just want to take you back a little to Poppy. Poppy was my very first naughty but nice dog, and she literally would see another dog and if she could, she would scoot away from the dog. And then when she was on a small space, like a pavement, she would actually potentially bark and lunge, given very little choice on a small space. Now, Poppy, ultimately, Tom, she was very worried by dogs, right?
Yeah.
Very, very worried. And actually, this is probably quite common.
Yeah, absolutely. And equally, you might have a dog that barks at other dogs because, maybe they're seriously stimulated by other dogs. Like I know Magma in different hands, she would find the movement of other dogs so stimulating that she would scream, right? She would be like, oh my goodness, they just moved an inch, and I scream. Yeah, it would blow her mind if she didn't have the skills and the skills hadn't been grown. So I guess the first thing to say, I think you should be over that. The first thing to say is that actually realize that this isn't, that your dog is the victim here, not the dogs they're barking at. Your dog is the real victim because they're saying that I don't have the skills for this situation and I don't know what to do.
They're finding themselves in positions again and again where they're actually not feeling particularly comfortable. And they're finding themselves in positions where actually they're quite worried. Yeah. And ultimately, we know that you wouldn't want to put them in that. And also we know that we wouldn't want to put them in that. So that's exactly what this video is here to serve and to teach and to show you.
She's like, are we going to play some games? I believe there are some games needed. So the first game that I guess we should show you is actually, it's kind of less of a game and more of a way of life, and that is using your dog's daily food allowance to teach them that the world is a good thing. So, we've got Magma's daily food allowance here, and as there might be sounds, there might be people appearing, there might be dogs generally, even beyond dogs, I would actually just be saying, hey, I see that the world asked you that question of, what are you going to do? And I'm going to help you out and say that's not something to worry about,
and
right?
Ultimately, what we're trying to do is pair actually that happened with something good. You know what? We don't need it to be at her nose. It doesn't need to be in her face. All we need to know and absolutely know is that actually she's being fed in the face of any distraction, whether it's a leaf falling from a tree, a squirrel knocking on your window, someone passing your door, the postman dropping some mail in. It could be something very, very minimal, like you opening the dishwasher. It literally does not need to be a big deal for you to catch them doing something right. Take the opportunity, like Tom said, you ditch the bowl, take the opportunity to reward your dog for doing something right.
Now, the second skill that you might want to think about is actually a level of disengagement. And actually, I think it's a great time to teach her this because she's very excited about this food. And so you see, you see the level of engagement here. And I'm going to cage that mouse if she tries to get it. And you see that, and then if she doesn't try and get it, oh, nice. That was a very dramatic poodle-esque disengagement. I'm actually going to look at the ceiling. And you see that she's learning it's about backing off, and then maybe, break, I'm going to let her get it. And then maybe we go back to a little bit of, I'm going to cage this mouse. I'm going to cage this mouse, and then get it. And we want to see that we're getting, get it. We're getting that balance between self-control and get it, and a level of desire as well. We're working real life. We want to see the body quiver, right? We want to see her really engaged.
We need a pulse. Ultimately, if you've got no pulse, then you're not working real dog training.
And so that is how we start to grow disengagement, self-control. And when we think about, as you get more into training your dog and learning about training your dog, you'll hear this thing called impulse control, right? Now, what is impulse control? Well, it's when your dog experiences an emotion of excitement or fear or whatever else, can they actually control that desire to go and cope with that? Whether it be bark at the other dog, whether it be run away from the other dog, whether it be chase the other dog. Can they show some level of control? Just like Magma needs to show some level of control. I caught you by surprise there, didn't I? Some level of control when it comes to the food that is on the ground. So we can teach these skills through games, and that's really what the Absolute Dogs Training Academy is all about, in transforming these struggles. Now, the third, I guess, thing to do is more of a game for you than a game for your dog, and that is it's okay to say no to certain experiences with your dog.
And it's absolutely you being your dog's very best advocate when you say, actually, that's not appropriate for my dog, or actually my dog's learning to do something completely different right now, or absolutely, I love the idea that you're going for a family walk and my dog's not coming on this walk because it's not going to grow in the right direction. However, I'd still love to come with you, and what I'll do is I'll leave my dog with a long-lasting Kong and I will pop out for a walk and come back, and I'll take him out for some exercise in a different way later. And also to look at exercise in a very different way. So for us, I might look at exercise like exercise is movement. Can I do movement in the garden? Can I do movement in the house? Yes, absolutely I can. A little bit like, do I go to the gym or do I use a Peloton in the house? You know what, you don't have to take them out for lots and lots of exercise when you're working on something like this. Actually minimizing the behavior and rehearsing only what you do want and trying to minimize what you don't want, growing them in the right direction. Like Tom said earlier, basically rehearsal really is the mother of skill. And so you really don't want a dog who rehearses barking at dogs all the time. The more they bark at the dogs, the more they will bark at dogs. So where you can prevent that rehearsal, even if it's like, I'm going to invest 3 weeks in games, I'm going to invest 4 weeks in games, I'm going to invest 5 weeks in games, I'm going to jump into the training academy, I'm going to do Sexy and Squirrel, whatever it might be that you decide is your right path, give it a little breather and minimize rehearsal of what you don't want, maximize and grow rehearsal of what you do want.
Final one that we weren't going to include, but she's demonstrating it so nicely, is actually your training 24/7. And so, if Magma had, a real tricky, found it really difficult to disengage from other dogs, I can see that she's finding it very difficult to disengage from this food bowl, and she's trying many things. And so actually, I am working on her struggle with other dogs in this very moment.
And people will not see it like that. They'll be like, well, no, that's a food bowl and you're training in the living room. No, you're working on disengagement from something you really want.
The temptation would be to put this food bowl out of shot. Yeah, the temptation would be
much easier for us
to pop it up there and I'll just have food in my hand. But the reality is she's got the opportunity here to learn a skill. And the skill is that no matter what this food bowl does, no matter what this pink other dog does, actually, your job is to disengage from it and instead engage with that boundary when your dad can get the aim right.
I can't help, I want to over-deliver. One very final, what to do if my dog barks at dogs, teach boundaries, teach boundaries, teach boundaries, teach boundaries, and teach more boundaries. Because boundaries ultimately will teach your dog a level of, disengage, stop. I really want that, and I should be on my boundary. Now, it might be an outside boundary. It might be that they sort of just interrupt themselves on a recall, or and they realize, yes, they should come back. Or it might be they go to chase something and then have that moment of stop. The boundaries really, really help. And you may not believe me because you may never have seen it before. I promise you, these are some sort of voodoo magic. They are voodoo magic. There is something very special in them. Hocus pocus and abracadabra. You know what? It's all in there. And I absolutely would be ready to unleash boundary magic. There's boundaries below that you can link into, because ultimately we know there's so many layers that you can add here. We're really in our specialist area when we're working with dogs that bark or dislike other dogs. That's very much what Absolute Dogs does and the home of Absolute Dogs does. And so we want you there. We know that this is magic. We know that it works, and we really can't wait to share it with even more of you.
So that was this episode of Absolute Dogs TV. As Magma demonstrated so well, we are always training. And so if you found this useful, make sure to share it with a friend, hit subscribe, and we will see you next week.
Remember, game changers, whatever the dog owning struggle, there's a game for that.
If you haven't already, remember to subscribe to our channel.
And check out our new 25-day online dog training challenge. Watch the videos, play the games, transform your dog owning struggles.
As a loyal YouTube subscriber, you can get a 70% discount through the link in the description below.
And if you haven't already, subscribe to the #1 most transformational dog training podcast on iTunes and Spotify, the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast.
And remember to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more live teaching, video content, and free training using the links in the description.